are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Um, First off, I have to say Freediver was amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Uh,
Thank you. Really proud of it. It was really hard to make.
I can
Maybe
only
that's obvious, but I can tell you it was really hard to make. So I'm glad that people are responding to it in the way they are.
um you're known for your documentaries, and my first question for you is just what inspired you to focus on this genre of storytelling?
Documentary or this film?
Documentaries as a whole.
Well, I was an editor. I was a documentary editor before I was a director. And I sort of took to documentary editing in a way that I don't know, like I just sort of found my calling in that at a really young age and got a lot of traction really quickly to the point of where I was kind of like kicking directors out of the edit room and being like, we got to make air. You're like, get out of here. I'm going to fix this. And then eventually people were just like, you should just direct. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's probably a good idea. To me, I love that I get to experience the world. I've been around the world more times than I can remember. I get to touch down in other people's lives and cultures and places and hopefully respectfully befriend them and present them in a way that I hope is truthful and entertaining for the audience. And it's just been an incredible career that I am, extremely grateful for. And I don't know what else I actually do. I have other things I like to do, but I seem to be really built for this.
I would agree.
Thank you.
Oh, with Freediver, how did this project begin and how did you find Alexi?
Yeah. Well, Alexei's the greatest freediver in the world, so he's pretty easy to find if you're looking at freediving. He's the first name that will come up. There was an article in GQ, and some friends of mine in Hollywood at Boardwalk Pictures, who I am very close with, reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to make this film? Because if you do, we do, and like let's see what happens." And so we worked with our friends at GQ and Condé Nast and the good folks at Picture Start and Skydance, funded the film, and we were off and making this thing. To me, what drew me to the story was it sounded really hard, and I've got to the point in my career where the challenge of it alone will get me pretty excited about a project because I've just done so much at this point, that if there's something that I'm like, how am I going to do that? I'm less attracted to it. And this film was full of how the heck are we going to do that? And so there was a technical level that was really hard for me to resist. Free diving itself is an insane sport. As soon as you hear about it, you're like, why would you?
Yeah.
And I wanted to answer that for myself and for the audience. And it just, it was a real adventure. And so, there was a lot of things about this film that seemed like it really, even though there's other freediving films out there, they're not done like this film is. Those films are sort of built out of found archival footage. Our film is captured live as the events are happening. It's a verite film. So how do you capture a world record that's happening at 512 feet under the water? You're going to get one take. He's never going to do it again. It's a world record. You don't get repeats on that. And how do you do that on a cinema camera? You don't just put a little GoPro on the thing and drop it down and get a shot. Like we shot this on cinema cameras at 512 feet below water. I believe maybe my crew has created their own world record with the deepest image of a human being out in the open water ever. I believe even the great James Cameron, who I love, has not done that. And so there's a lot to be proud of in this film, but I'm really proud of the story. And the technical side is, of course, exciting. And for geeks like me, we like to talk about that. But this is really a story about a young man who's sort of living in the shadow of his mother, who is even more towering of a presence than he is within this sport. And how does he balance sort of honoring her legacy while trying to be better than her? And oh, also, he has a young child at home. And this is a sport that you travel for. Of course, you travel, I guess, for all professional sports. Although this isn't a professional sport, there's no money in freediving, which makes it even crazier. But how do you balance your own personal ambitions as an athlete or as a professional and also take care of the people who love you and who are at home when you go off to do your own sort of missions and quests. And I think that's a lot of what the film is about as well. Long answer, I apologize.
No, it was great. It was great. We will definitely have to look into the record-breaking film deepest.
Yeah, do me a favor. Don't find anyone who did it deeper than I just don't think it's possible because that's 512 is not the deepest anyone's ever been. There's another guy who like had took down like air with like a balloon to pull him back up. A guy named Herbert Nietzsche has been technically deeper than 512, and there is GoPro footage of that. But this is again a cinema camera. No one else can do what Alexei does. So how could there be an image that's deeper than that?
Right. So, in filming this live, you were there for his blackout. What was that like for you being a filmmaker, but also witnessing this? And what was that like?
Yeah, so there's been a couple times in my career where I'm telling the story of incredibly dangerous sports. I did a series for Netflix a number of years ago called Fearless, which is about bull riding. And it was one of the first times where I like you're befriending, you're studying these people, you're profiling them, and then you watch them get on like a beast and go out there and like they could die literally within seconds. And there's something that starts to tug at your heart where you're like, don't, just stop, don't do it. And you're like, well, I have to deliver the film that people are paying me to make, but also don't do it. And so that very much happened on this film. There was one point where Alexei said what he was going to do the next day, and I couldn't sleep. That night, I was like, I can't sleep. And and then the next day after that dive, I couldn't sleep as well. So I had like a lot of sleepless nights on this project.
Dang. I like
Yeah.
don't have words for that because it's so scary.
Yeah, no, this is a thriller doc. This is like a thriller sports doc with like a little bit of psychedelic elements in it. I'm not sure there's ever really been a film like this before. I've certainly never made one, and I can't really think of another film that functions in the way that this one does. And so I'm super proud of it. And I think I had to sort of reinvent some of the genres or the rules of the genres in order to tell the story the way I wanted to tell it. And so, yeah, I'm glad there's no words for some of what happened here because it's a movie. You should watch it and experience it. But it's a thriller. Like my wife, so she's like, "This is the best film you ever made." I don't know if I can ever watch it again. Like it's a great watch. It's an edge of your seat watch. And it's really a beautiful and moving film, hopefully on an emotional and human level as well. But there are sequences in here that are you can't even believe what you're seeing.
No, can't.
Well, I can promise you it's all real because I was there. It all happened.
So, throughout the course of making this film, did you ever try free diving or like experiment with holding your breath?
Yeah, so yes, not free diving per se. First of all, in high school, I used to hold my breath in classes because I was so bored. And I tried a little bit of breath holding casually while doing this project as well. And I did not really try the free diving in the way that you're asking. I wanted to, and it's not that I would never even come close to anything that Alexei or any real free diver is doing, but I would try that the responsibilities of directing a film like this are so deep that there's no time for me to do fun things like that, really. I'm constantly either capturing something or preparing for the next thing to capture. There's not a lot of free time. And then I'm talking to people, and there's not a lot of free time when you're making a film like this, or probably any film. So I'm sad to report that I haven't done sort of recreational freediving. But it's really just because I just didn't have time because my responsibilities as the director, writer, and producer of this film are never ending, right? And so there really wasn't a lot of time. My director of photography, Jeff, who should win the Academy Award for photography and for this film. I'm not sure this film will make enough noise to get the Academy's attention, but he should win. He did. He did it after we wrapped one of our last big shoots. And he actually did really good. I forget how far he got down, but he got down really far in his first try. He's not a normal person, though. He's sort of like a superhuman. So, of course, he did that.
Would you try it?
Yeah, I would. Alexei offered. He said, "Do you want to take a class with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know when or how, and maybe after when he's as busy as I am, honestly, and maybe we'll be at the same place sometime in the future." But yeah, I would totally try. I'm a big there's the sport of it all. There's the diving. This sport, it's the sport, right? But there's also this thing, and you see it at the end of the film where if you're good at free diving and holding your breath, you can experience this whole other half of the world that we don't see as human beings very often. And Alexei goes on this journey towards the end of the film where he sort of reconnects to earth and animals. And it gives him his ability to hold his breath for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, depending on what he's doing. Keep in mind, he's swimming while doing that, not just sitting in a chair holding his breath. He's swimming like Olympic levels of output swimming while holding his breath for that long. But the ability to do that also gives him the ability to experience this incredible world. I love the ocean. I love swimming. I used to want to be an oceanographer or a marine biologist when I was younger. And so, yeah, I would totally try it.
Well, I hope you get to one day.
I'm sure. I'm sure I will, especially now that I made this film.
Awesome. Um, that was all the questions that I had for you. Again, love the film, and I
Thank you.
can't wait to see what you do next.
Yeah, there'll be something announced early next year, actually.
Can't wait.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Beth.